impact groups in Luxembourg, and that is, it's a bubble. Very often it's the same schools from where these youngsters come from. Once one youngster is from that school, he invites all his friends. And so what we had for a long time in the Luxembourg Youth Parliament, but also in other groups.
Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in the studio Sam Elsey, who is the president of the Luxembourg Youth Parliament. Welcome, Sam.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, for me, addressing young people is extremely important because I think they have a very big role to play in today's politics. So maybe let's jump right into it. Could you present the Luxembourg Youth Parliament in a few words?
Sure. So I would describe the Luxembourg Youth Parliament as the bridge from youth to politics. It is a group for 14 to 24-year-olds. Anyone in the whole of Luxembourg who fulfills those conditions can join. And the main idea is to truly be neutral but also bipartisan. On one side, to be this bridge which has no color itself, with which youngsters can discover what politics is, have a first insight into it. And on the other side, to also work with all politicians, whichever their party may be. So technically it might be a bit hypocritical. Neutral and bipartisan are contraries to each other, but at the same time it gives us this opportunity to present politics to lots of youngsters who have a very negative view of politics. It's a sad truth, but at the same time also have an impact in a country such as Luxembourg, where it only works if you talk to everyone. And so we start at the beginning of September, October. We have a recruitment phase, we have our plenary phase, and then after that, our commissions, where we choose topics, we work on these topics, we create a resolution, and at the end of the year, this resolution, well, first it will be voted at the final plenary, and then it will be presented in the Chamber of Deputies. So it truly gives us a whole year to delve into topics, to truly get an idea of what we're talking about, working with experts, working always factual, always working with trying to find as reliable sources as possible, and then afterwards building a convincing and coherent resolution which we can then present to policymakers, work with them, have bilateral discussions with them, and truly bring our country forwards, which is also nice. We don't have the risk. We're youngsters, we're young. We don't have our careers tied to what we say or what we don't say. So sometimes it feels as though we actually have more political courage than some other politicians, but that's our job.
Just because you don't care.
Basically.
And I think right now you're working on pensions?
Yes, so we were asked by the Prime Minister to create a resolution on pensions. I can't say anything about the content yet. We are fully in the works of it. But there again, we will try to be as critical as we can, not taking any papers in front of our mouth, but just truly saying what needs to be said. And for the rest, again, work with experts, try to be reliable, and present what needs to be done, and also the views of youth, what also needs to be done to protect them, who will be the ones who will be the most impacted by whichever reform is chosen in the end.
When you say neutral and bipartisan, if I understand well, it means I don't have to choose if I'm for DP, CSV or anybody, but if you're going to talk to one party, you'll talk to all of them.
Exactly. So we never have any political color. We try to stay away from any affiliation to any party. But at the same time, the only way to truly shift things in Luxembourg, a small country as we are, is to work with all parties. So for example, in front of the last elections, we had entrevues, so meetings with basically all parties of Luxembourg. Sadly, we couldn't meet all of them, but we truly tried. And just trying to, if you talk with someone, then you try to talk with everyone, try to get all the opinions and try to promote our opinions, which we hope to represent the youth with.
So let's take pension, very, very interesting topic. I'm sure the current minister, Martin Deprez, will appreciate your efforts. How far do you go? I imagine you meet, you look at the numbers. Do you make propositions? How is this working?
So we always write resolutions. So what we try to do is first we try to identify the ICs, introductory clauses, what is the problem, and then find a according solution, OCs, which are the clauses which solve these problems. Each clause which we present needs to be backed up by a source, so we always try to remain as factual as possible. We also have a long history of working with experts, So we try finding people, be it from the public, private, or other domains. Sometimes we work with Reporter.lu, Forum.lu, so truly journalists. And then we slowly build out this resolution, so it's based on compromise, but also voting, so everything is chosen democratically. Once this resolution is finished, we then vote it internally in the Youth Parliament, and then present it, to the Chamber of Deputies. So all the deputies get a copy of our resolution, we present it, we have a full debate about it, and in this case particular, we hope to present it also to the Prime Minister Luc Frieden, who also expressively asked us to create this resolution. So it's in the works. I can't say anything about its content yet.
I was not aware. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think really it's going to support healthy conversations. We
sure.
know that there's a lot of people involved from OGBL, CGFP, all parties. And we know that consensus is a cultural thing here. So surely this voice of the future will be very important. Maybe let's shift to politics in general.
Yeah.
How are young people, you mentioned 14 to 18, how are they informing themselves? How are they debating politics, or are they?
So it's very, very hard to take all of Luxembourgers as one single group. Also something which was a lot of my effort this year was to not only try to gather Luxembourgers, but all of the youngsters in Luxembourg, be it if they have the Luxembourgish nationality or otherwise, trying to really build something which goes beyond what our politics represent as of now. And there, the problem really is there is no compromise in the sense that there's one group. There's a lot of people who inform themselves about in social media, but then again, some are on LinkedIn, some are on Instagram, a lot are on TikTok. So trying to reach all of them and trying to filter who is who has which opinion is very hard. A lot of people, and that's sad, is the silent majority which doesn't inform themselves at all. The goal is, of course, to reach them, because these are the people who don't know enough about politics, who would benefit the most about discovering them. And then again, there's one sad factor about young politics in Luxembourg, or in general, impact groups in Luxembourg, and that is it's a bubble. Very often it's the same schools from where these youngsters come from. Once one youngster is from that school, he invites all his friends. And so what we had for a long time in the Luxembourg Youth Parliament, but also in other groups, are the same kind of people, the same opinions, the same backgrounds.
It's polarized, basically.
Very much so. And so I'm very happy that this year I made it shift. This was the first in the Luxembourg Youth Parliament where we didn't just speak Luxembourgish in all of the commissions, which, I mean, if you look at the demographics of youth in Luxembourg, it's crazy that you would only speak Luxembourgish. That's like 15% of all youngsters in total who are in the country who only speak Luxembourgish, and yet that was the Youth Parliament. So we tried to reform it. Now we basically only speak bridge languages like French and English. But yeah, to come back to the initial question, sorry, it's quite hard to gather them all. But I'd say that a lot of them are now on social media, and that's also where we are reorienting our communication strategy towards, just trying to reach people and really showing that politics isn't what everyone thinks it is. This stuffy old room, old people with white hair sitting there, no one talking to anyone. It actually is a lot more reachable. In my first year in Luxembourg Youth Parliament, I spoke to at least 10 different deputies. I had the opportunity to present a resolution in the in the Chamber of Deputies. It was scary, but it was a lot of fun. And in the end, I truly felt as though I had an impact, as though I could shift something. And that I believe has to be the goal of the Luxembourg Youth Parliament, and I believe in education as well. As of now, there's just not enough politics in our daily lives. And I mean, there's an old saying which goes, if you don't participate in politics, or if you don't lead in politics, well, politics will still lead you. You still have to involve yourselves. Politics is everything. And once that is understood by a larger audience of youth, then they can actually also have a voice and not just be the ignored part of society.
Yeah, and I would be a bit more specific here. You know, I've been posting a lot the last 15 months about politics, and I think two things are very, very special here. First is the very tiny size of the country. you can really have an impact. I strongly believe that if your proposition about pension is good, it will have an impact on Martine Deprez's work. I don't think it would be the same in Germany or France. So this is one thing. And the second thing that would be almost like an advice from an old guy to a young guy, I think your generation needs to understand the context. We are just finishing 40 years of absolute amazing years thanks to finance. All good things come to an end.
Yeah.
We are not there yet, but we all understand that finance is not going to be the easy money-making thing. So it's in your hands, and I think to mobilize as many young people as you can to have an impact on their own future. Maybe let's finish with the last question about this impact. So how do you quantify your work? Do you quantify in terms of how many people join the parliament, youth parliament, or how many propositions we did, or how many views you got on TikTok? How do you measure your own impact?
I must say that is really hard. So we have, I would say it really depends which goal you choose, because the Youth Parliament sets itself multiple goals. On one side, it's to educate as many youngsters as possible. In that regard, I myself am very proud to say that the Youth Parliament had an above 100% growth in the last 2 years when it comes to members. So these are in total, more than 200 people which we could educate on what is politics, having meetings with different politicians with them, and various other activities. Then there's just outreach, getting the majority of youngsters to actually know what the Youth Parliament is. In that regard, we've had a lot of growth. I mean, we went from 0 to 1,200 followers on LinkedIn. We had massive growth on TikTok as well. Same for Instagram, where we reached a lot of youngsters. If all of them afterwards joined the Youth Parliament, sadly, is a different story.
Of course.
And then the last part is truly our impact, our work for the Luxembourg youth when it comes to politicians. And I must say it's very, very hard to quantify. We've had certain propositions when it comes to, for example, schools or mental health in schools, which were directly put in projects afterwards of the Ministry of Education. Problem is, however, they take our ideas, but they never really give us feedback afterwards. So it's just, it's very hard for us to actually know, was it us whose words were, which had a shift in policy, which actually had a good impact, or was it someone else's? But however, I do believe that especially the last 3 elections which we had here in Luxembourg gave us a lot of impact just by meeting politicians. In our entrevues, there were certain parties which directly copied parts of our propositions into their communal, national or European propositions. So that I'm truly proud of. And then again, there were also a few other things. For example, we are now planning to launch a petition with the Youth Council, which is the grouping of a lot of different youth organizations, about the vote from 16 onwards for youngsters. So there's a lot of things where we have direct or indirect impact, but measuring it, I would say, is a very, very difficult job.
Maybe that's the art of influencing. It's not deciding, it's influencing. You're just leaning a little bit, and sometimes you see there's some momentum created.
Yeah, we hope to create a domino effect.
For me it was very, very nice to have you. I have to say, when I wake up at 6 o'clock to post, I have young people in mind first, because when I get feedback from older people, they agree with me, but it's too late for them. They're not going to have an impact on our economy, society, regulation, all those things that the government is trying to do right now, whereas you can, with your friends, have a real impact over decades and basically decide your own future. So thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Sam.